Well, a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to our meeting. I'm just going to ask Lynn to update us on Microsoft issues, not my strength.
Thank you. It's not my strength either, but Francis advises me that it's the Microsoft issues are not just in this council this room. It's actually across all of council. So our IT team will come back with a solution hopefully shortly. Is everybody okay? Everybody's got.
So we will proceed with the meeting.
Yes, we will continue.
And what is the issue?
It's a Microsoft issue.
Does it fix something?
It is affecting people's ability to sign into. Yes.
And laptops are quite likely to explode. Right. Oh, okay, right. Yeah. Lara.
I'll just add, some people may not realise that there's a new password for internet login. So see it's doing its rounds on a piece of paper. So if anyone can't access things like Outlook or Teams, that might be why. If you haven't already updated it in the last sort of 2 weeks.
Thank you, Lara.
I'm looking at you.
I knew that.
Right, since we're completely under control now, we'll move to our meeting opening, and big welcome, Marius Dreifeld. Thank you for coming along. Marius, you recall, was here probably 4 weeks ago or a month ago, whenever it was. And so we're in your hands. If you'd like to open the meeting for us, please.
Thank you, Michael. As Michael said, my name is Marius Dreifeld. I'm here from the Fielding Bible Chapel this morning, and thank you for the opportunity to open your meeting. For those who are early risers among you, you may have seen the sunrise on Monday morning. Anyone see that? I took a photo of it. It's up there
On the screen?
on the screen. And it was a stunning sunrise. And I also went up to Highfield Hill, and there was a similar one up there, an amazing sunrise. And for those farmers among you, they're probably thinking that's a sign of rain this week. So there's a second photo coming up now. That's another incredible view. And as I looked at that, I thought of a verse in the Psalms where it says, "Praise the Lord. Praise, O servants of the Lord. Praise the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of the Lord. From this time forth and forevermore, from the rising of the sun to its going down, the name of the Lord is to be praised." And I thought, after 3 really nice days in Hawke's Bay, a holiday last week, and then coming back to Fielding, where it wasn't quite so sunny, I thought about my time living in Fielding. My wife, Leanne, and I moved here 25 years ago from Auckland. That's my hometown. And our children at that time were just toddlers and very young. But it's been a wonderful place to bring up our children. Fielding, it really has. Our children went to Colleton School, and I was involved there on the board for a number of years. And they went to Fielding Intermediate and then went to Fielding High School. So, and they got involved in lots of things at the school, and it was fantastic. I taught there for 7 or 8 years, and it's been a really good, a positive thing for my children. They're both very adventurous, and they love traveling. And my daughter she travels around the world tree climbing. She's an arborist, and my son has just gone to live in Kalgoorlie in Western Australia. He's working in the gold and the salt mines there. So, like a lot of young people, he's been lured over there. But I think we have a really great town here, and so much to be thankful for. So let us pray. Lord, we thank you this morning for this place of peace and prosperity. We thank you that this is a great place where people can live and raise their families and retire. We thank you for our new library and all the work that's gone into that, and all that will be of benefit in the future years. We thank you for our council and all those who serve in different ways. We commit this meeting to you this morning and pray for your guidance and wisdom for all the items that are on the agenda today. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So just a bit of news. Michael asked me to say, what's happening around in our world. So I attend the Fielding Bible Chapel, which I discovered recently has been there since about the 1880s, so almost 150 years. So it's been around a long time. As a church, we try and welcome families as much as we can. We have a program called Mainly Music for Toddlers. We have a discovery club during our services, and we also have Boys and Girls Rally, which has been going for a number of years, and that's open to anyone in the community. And we've also got a youth group, so we love having families, and they're very welcome in our church. Recently, we've appointed 2 youth workers in 2 part-time roles, various admin responsibilities, plus working with our teenagers and children, and that's quite exciting. And at the moment, we're planning a town-wide service for a focus on young people with a theme of resilience, which is a real thing for young people these days. And also planning tentatively a Christmas service. So some good things are happening with the churches in Fielding. So that's about me. So thank you for the opportunity to come here this morning and open your meeting.
Thank you very much, Marius, and thanks for the update and sort of a heads up about your church community. But particularly thank you for all the good work that you do in our community.
Thank
and yeah, that word resilience, it's an important one. And we use it a lot out in council, and sometimes it's to do with infrastructure and things, but resilience in terms of people is very, very important. So thank you, and thank you for opening our meeting.
Thank you.
Great. We don't have any apologies today. Mayor Helen is on pre-approved leave of absence. She's actually swimming with turtles in Samoa. So I think she's back late tomorrow or the next day. So we have the confirmation of the minutes. Would someone like to move that they be approved? Councillor Hadfield.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'd like to move that the minutes of the council meeting held 4 July 2024 be adopted as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Quigley. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, that motion's carried. Declarations of interest. Great. We'll move into the public forum, but to my knowledge, there's no we have no public forum speakers, so we go to presentations, and we have some young people to welcome to our meeting. First of all, we have so we're just checking that Luca hasn't turned up. No, okay. So we move to Elan Hinks. If you'd like to come and join us at the table, and Ephraim Yebury. And they're going to talk about the representative grant and their attendance at the National Under-18 Hockey Tournament held in Hawke's Bay very recently. So a big welcome, and please tell us all about it. So long as your lights on green, you're good to go.
Alrighty. Good morning, council members. My name is Ephraim Yebury, and this young man sitting beside me is Elan Hinks. We both trialled and were selected for the Manawatu Under-18 tournament squad to play at the Vantage National Under-18 men's hockey tournament.
We were thrilled to share our experience from a recent tournament where approximately 390 players gathered, representing teams from 19 regions, stretching from Northland to Southland. It was an intense competition with almost all our games being 1 goal away from a win. And I'm proud to say that we finished 15th out of 22 teams.
One of the standout moments for me was our match against Auckland. Despite Auckland being the eventual champions and boasting a junior blackstick midfielder, we put up a fierce fight and lost by a narrow 3-1 margin. This game showcased our team's resilience and our determination.
My highlight from the trip was making new friends and learning important lessons. The tough competition meant we had to stay focused and play our best all the time. Playing under pressure taught us about teamwork, being resilient, and always giving our best. Outside of the sport, we made friends with people from different places around the Manawatu and getting to know them through our love of hockey. This made our experience even better as we got to see new perspectives and build connections beyond just playing a game of hockey. These memories and lessons will stay with me forever.
Another personal highlight for me was scoring my first goal at national level on the Manawatu 18 team. This moment was definitely special for me. It gave me the confidence to try new things and not worry about if it's going to work out or not. Scoring the goal will be a memory that I will look back on for years to come is a moment to encourage me to go for it, no matter what.
We are both grateful for the funding for accommodation, travel, and tournament fees. This financial assistance was invaluable. Hockey is an expensive sport and it helped ease the pressure for both our families. Rather than Ephraim and I spending time fundraising, working, we both could focus on training, coaching, and umpiring, schoolwork, and getting plenty of sleep. For me personally, it allowed me to focus totally on the competition.
Looking ahead, I have my sights set on trialling for the under-18 Manawatu team and the Manawatu National Hockey Championship team next year. Additionally, I'm committed to continue my umpiring for the local school competition. These aspirations drive me to keep contributing to the sport I love.
I would also love to trial for the under-18 Manawatu team next year. I definitely want to coach next year for school as well as continue umpiring. These aspirations will help me to keep contributing and improving the sport I love. Thank you again for the council's support.
Thank you very much. And what an interesting tournament, 390 players. I mean, that's a lot of people. That's great. 19 regions, 22 teams. We heard the word resilience a couple of times again after Marius, and it's important. But I think what I'm hearing is that the two of you are just a perfect example of why sport is such a good thing in young people's lives. In fact, people's lives, full stop. And to hear about your goals and aspirations and what you're wanting to do gives us a huge amount of satisfaction that our small contribution has been a good investment. So thank you. I'll open it up for my fellow councillor colleagues. Any questions or comments? Councillor Underwood.
Hi, I was just wondering, at international level, what's the lowest age group in hockey? Like, is there an under 18 New Zealand side?
No, there's a under 21 national side. So under 18, that's usually just like camps. We under 18 get selected from national tournament. Yeah.
So you wouldn't have had any selectors come and watch the tournament?
Oh yeah, there were heaps. Yeah. They ended up watching all of our games. Yeah.
Excellent.
Councillor Short.
Thank you. Well done, guys. It must be an advantage for fielding having such good turf facilities at the school, and for a school and a town of our size, we're very, very lucky. Whereabouts did you actually play over there? Was it at school facilities, or is it the Higgins Sports Park? What's the?
So we played at Park Island. So that's where the top 16 teams played. The bottom 6 played at the park in Hastings, but we stayed at New Plymouth Boys High School. Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you once again, and wishing you all the best with your careers, both hockey careers and education, etc. And thanks for coming along and sharing with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Now invite Taylor Eastwood to come and join us. Taylor's been involved with National Basketball Championships in Auckland. So welcome, Taylor.
Morning, everyone. At the beginning of May, I got selected to be in the Manawatu under-16 girls basketball team, and we had a regional tournament at the beginning of June held in Palmy, and we had to place top 3 in order to qualify for nationals there. Unfortunately, we had some pretty hard games, but in the end, we ended up coming 3rd out of 4 teams, so that made us qualify for nationals. And then in the first week of the holidays, nationals was held at Pullman Arena in Papakura. Some memories from my tournament were our game against Counties Manukau. We had girls in that team that were double some of our girls' height, and so it took us a few quarters to kind of get around their play, and we did play them as a fun game at regionals, and they gave us they got a good win out of that. So going into that game, we knew it was going to be a really tough game, but our girls actually pulled out. We played really, really well, and we took some we learned a lot from that game, and playing girls twice your height always is, look, pardon me, isn't always going to be easy. So we took a lot out of that game, learning how to get around taller players and passing the ball, and yeah. Another one of my memories was making new connections with the team. I got pulled into the team late, so all of the girls have already played together and trained together for about a few months before I got pulled into the team. So I was kind of the odd one out at first. It was a little bit scary, a little bit nervous. But when we first came in there, we were all like individuals, and I knew of some of the girls, but I didn't know all of them. And spending that week together, we all got to know each other on a deeper level, and we all made great connections and memories that's definitely going to last a lifetime. And yeah, some of those girls have a really close part in my heart now. Also representing my home region, Manawatu, that was really exciting. Hopefully made my family really proud. All the stuff I learned from representing Manawatu, really excited to bring that back to my community and teach the younger kids now all the stuff that I learned, and even come back to my own Fielding High School basketball team and teach all the girls all of the stuff I learned there as well. It was really exciting. I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I'd like to say thank you to you guys for giving me this opportunity. I play lots of sports, and it's really not hard, but difficult sometimes to find the fundings and going out there as a team doing the funding. So I'm really grateful for you guys for giving me the opportunity to go up there and do the sport, play the sport I love, and make a lot of memories. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Taylor. What a great story, and it sounds like it was sort of a life-changing trip, really, because
Yes,
you've made
yeah.
a whole lot of new friends and new experiences. You've obviously had some tough games that you learned a lot from. And congratulations on getting into the team, etc. You are clearly a great ambassador for Manawatu, a great representative on the sports court, but more than that, you're obviously a great ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. Once again, I'll open it up to my fellow councillors. Anyone? Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Taylor, you talked about something that I found quite interesting in terms of how much you learn when you're perhaps not the strongest team. And so I'm curious about going into a game or coming out of a game. What sort of conversations are you having as a team in terms of your reflections and your learning?
So going into a game, we make 3 goals. So whether that's, winning the first quarter, or, blocking off some players, or, putting up some shots that we don't normally put up. And coming out of a game, we kind of just focus on, if we lose, that's all right, but what can we do in the next game to make our next game better, and not really, make our next game better, and just focus on the stuff and work on the stuff that we didn't do as well in that game prior. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Taylor, and all the best with your basketball career and in life generally. And just thanks for sharing with us. We've
Thank you, guys.
really appreciated it, and happy to help in a small way. I don't believe we've got Sienna Fay or Geordie Lee coming today, so thanks very much. Really enjoyed hearing your stories. Notification of late items, none. Recommendations from committees. So we'll move to item 9, committee and group meetings for information. Usual story, we've got some community committee meetings and youth council meetings. If the liaison councillor would just briefly highlight anything of particular relevance or particular interest, that would be great, starting with Bainesi Rangiotu.
Kia ora. We've had 1 meeting since the last report. Nothing's really shifted. The planting hasn't increased, or there are still all the little baby trees and rako are still alive, so the weather hasn't shifted that. So yeah, nothing new to report.
Thank you, Bridget. Councillor Bill. Colleton. Councillor
Thank
Blackmore.
you. Thank you. The last meeting was really focused on the submissions for the projects that's required for funding. The other point I'd make about Collerton is there is quite a bit of concern around speeds around the school. And so lodged a query around some signage for the school there. And it did feature on a everything fielding kind of page recently where, you know, during their school, I can't remember if it was pick up or drop off time, there was some vehicles going through at 100k.
Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. Just a quick update. I've been working on the Microsoft issue, and I can report that it's actually a global outage. So I'm probably a little bit busy here to deal with that. So IT will advise when it's resolved.
So just further to that, emails are completely out, but SharePoint is working extremely slowly and intermittently.
What she said.
Oh, sorry,
Yep.
Teams. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Francis. Right, that brings us to Himitangi Beach.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could help with the computer outage.
That'd be much appreciated. Thanks. Well, I'm sure we'll knock it off together. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, that we've actually got a very technical group of colleagues that are clearly able to solve this issue.
Absolutely, throw them away.
Yeah, pity Councillor Bell doesn't have any skills in that area, but never mind.
We do have one spare copy of a printed agenda if anybody requires it. Everyone's okay?
Yeah. I better carry on with my
Right,
report.
back to Himitangi Beach.
Yeah, we had a meeting last week and they were very pleased with the response they're getting from council. A bouquet to James. They seem to be working very well with him and very appreciative of the work that he puts into Himitangi. They've had a couple of issues and they've been remedied in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And yeah, everything seems quite happy and the village is looking good. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Corrie. Move to Huanui. Councillor Underwood.
Thank you. Huanui have managed to deal with the 3 clauses that NZTA put on them to get their funding for the pathways. So they think that that's all going to be approved now. They've had approval for 2 and they're just waiting for the 3rd one. They had their AGM, which they were able to present to the community. It was quite a good turnout of community members. All the projects that they've covered over the last 18 months since the new committee was elected. And they were looking for new members and they managed to bring 3 new members into the committee, and the chairman indicated that he will be stepping down due to being overcommitted at the moment.
Thank you. Certainly, Councillor Blackmore, the Chair and Secretary from Collerton are pretty impressed with what happens at Huanui, aren't they? So that's great. Move to Sanson.
Thank you. Not really a lot happening at Sanson, just quite a small committee. It's really hard. Sanson's a community that just so divided by all the traffic and everything. It's really hard to get a village feel. But the committee at the moment is working really well with the new principal of the school, Grayson Marsh, which is actually Phil's son. And recently they agreed through the money that they make out of the Sanson market to give the school $1,000 per annum for school trips and, you know, extra curricular activities. So the school was very appreciative of that. And would you like me to go into Tangamoana?
Thank you. Or just a quick question on Sanson. So the school got down to a very low roll. Has that increased at all?
I think they've got one more family. I think Grayson said they started the year with only 12 students. And I think the previous principal had just sort of run out of oomph and a lot of families were going elsewhere. And I think they're up to 16 now, which is, well, doesn't sound, 4 kids doesn't sound a lot, but it is when it was 12.
It's a big percentage.
Yeah. And he's really working very hard. So I imagine that they will pick up more families.
Thank you.
With his leadership.
Yep, Councillor Short, if you'd like to move to Tangamoana.
Tangamoana?
Not yourself physically, I don't mean that.
Well, you know, good retirement, actually, you know. we had the final signing of the Deep South agreement. And many thanks to Mayor Helen and CE Shane for attending that event, along with Horizons, Massey University and members of the community. Unfortunately, the Deep South project finishes and there's no further funding. It would have been good if there'd been another 12 months. I think we would have got quite a bit more achieved before handing it back to the community. But also to say thank you to the community, the Deep South project is giving the community committee $5,000 to say thank you, which they may use in any way they feel that they would like to. The other thing that's come to the attention of the Tangamoana community, which I'll just let you know about, which is very interesting and on our radar, and watch this space. It's been discovered that there's been a new energy company registered called Tangamoana Wind Limited. And when the community committee were contacted, they knew very little about it. So we've all gone away and done some homework. Tangamoana Wind Limited is one of a number of new registered companies out of Wellington, but the parent company is a company called Yinson, which is a mega global corporate based in Malaysia that has interests in every continent around the world, barring Antarctica. So they are apparently looking at a wind farm from everywhere between Tangamoana and Hamatangi, according to what we've been able to find. Apparently they're going to be making an application for a master test wind speed. So that's got everyone very concerned. They've also got one in for Sandtoft and another of other sites not too far away. The interesting one for Tangamoana though will be that in the one plan there's 4 regionally protected landscapes, and one of them is what they call the Foxtangi Dunes, which is from Tangamoana to Foxton. So it is actually a designated special landscape. So not sure whether that's going to go anywhere. I don't know whether Hamish has done any looking into the background. I've been discussing it with Shane. We're all just like surprised that no one had heard of it. It just came under the radar very slowly. So watch this space.
Thank you. Interesting. Right, Councillor Blakemore, we'll move to the Youth Council.
Thank you. A couple of big things for the Youth Council since we last spoke about them. So the first was their Youth Fest on the 6th of July at the Civic Centre. So primarily that was market stalls for young people, plus a few performances. And it was a very good day, probably 400-ish people through. It was a very cold day, and in order to attract people, we had the back doors open, and so there were a few freezing cold people there. But they did well nonetheless. Thank you to the councillors who popped through for a wee look and a wee spend. That's always appreciated. They have been asked if they might run a Christmas night market, so they might have a look at that as well. Probably not at the same scale, but something a bit pared down. And a couple of weeks ago, Joey and I took 7 Youth Council members down to Wellington for Festival for the Future. Bridget was there as well. Councillor Bell was there with some of her kura. And that kept Joey and I on our toes, fair to say, with 7 wide-eyed young people in the big city. But it was very good, and we've had a debrief since we've been back about our learnings. And they'll be sharing to their peers who didn't attend on Monday at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to officer reports and remits to Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting. Francis, you're going to take off your acting hat and move to People and Corporate. Just a quick heads up, Lynn became a grandmother in the early hours of this morning, and just a few complications and things that she's had to dash off to deal with. So,
Awesome.
Awesome, thank you. So, remits to LGNZ. So LGNZ is running 21st to 23rd of August, and Her Worship the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and Chief Executive will be attending as well. So what we're asking you today is to have a look through those 8 remits, which I'm sure you've read, that has come from fellow councils or fellow zones, and to indicate whether or not you would collectively support or not support each one. And then the general expectation is that Her Worship will vote in accordance with what you've indicated. She doesn't have to, so if some world groundbreaking news comes up that, you know, drastically changes the landscape, she's got the ability to pivot. But I don't believe that's happened. And that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions, but otherwise we'll shoot through the recommendations and discuss as needed.
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, I think you've accurately described what does happen. So Mayor Helen basically votes the way that the council has indicated that we'd like her to vote. I can't recall any exceptions, but it would only be if at the AGM of someone's presenting information and which we hadn't understood or new information, etc., and suddenly might change the view. So they would be the circumstances where she might vote differently. But to my knowledge, she's always followed the guide that council has provided. So we move on to the first one, which is representation reviews, that LGNZ advocate for changes that support the provision of timely and accurate regional and sub-regional population data to councils for use in council representation reviews. And hopefully you've all had a read of the background. That one is very little to read, actually. I'll open it for discussion, but we may, yep, I'll open it for discussion if anyone wishes to speak to that. Right, we'll put it to the vote. Please, all those in favour of the remit, please say aye. Or raise your hands, that's great.
Sorry, if I can just interject, do you want to just do them as a block and I'll just note down whether it's support or not, or do you want to vote and carry each one by themselves?
Could be a mixture of answers.
Each remit, we're going to have to do each remit.
Yes, sorry, I'm just wondering whether to record. I'll record them each individually.
Okay. To the contrary. So that is a support that we support that remit. Number 1. Number 2, community services card, and that was put up by Palmerston North, that LGNZ advocate to central government to amend the health entitlement cards regulations 1993 so that the card holder can use the community services card as evidence for the purposes of assessing or accessing council services which would otherwise rely on a form of means testing. Anyone wish to speak to that? Right, all those in favour of supporting, sorry, Councillor Underwood, please proceed.
I was just wondering whether it was necessary, because it said there that you can't demand the community services card as a form of identification or as evidence that the card holder is eligible for that card. But if you were asking them to present their card to enable them to access community housing, I don't think it meets either of those criteria. You're not asking them for identification, you're just asking them for, can you clarify?
Councillor Bickmore?
I can't clarify, but I read that differently. I read it that you could, if you wish to use your community services card as evidence, you could. But if you chose to be means tested, you could also. So they can't demand it, but they could offer it as an option, is how I read it.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. When I looked at this, I thought it's a rather convoluted way of actually of saying that actually all they need to be able to do is actually ask, which the current legislation apparently doesn't allow. I actually find this isn't, and possibly I've taken a different meaning again, is that the way that remit's worded actually lacks clarity in my view. So if all they're actually wanting to do is actually being able to ask a question which they're not entitled to at the moment, why don't they just say that? But perhaps I've read that differently to you guys, to colleagues.
Councillor Bell, did you have your hand up? No, no. Anyone else? Councillor Short.
Oh, and it's just gone from my screen. It's all right. No, I mean, I just think that reducing barriers to access to services is what this is about. You know, and if someone's in a desperate housing situation, and as the example that Palmerston North has given, and they're looking for some housing, they'll be stressed. Making it as easy as possible for the person making the application makes sense. I presume they're just talking about council services, then that this wouldn't go as far as the Department of Internal Affairs rates rebate, just for specifically for council internal use. Is that the way everyone reads it? Yeah. But I mean, we are an agency for DIA. As far as the rates rebate goes, but that's a little bit more, it's quite a form to fill out, isn't it?
Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, at the end of the day, I'm sure Palmy will explain this and when they get the opportunity in a rather erudite fashion. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I think Palmy can put the case and you know, it's you know, we'll go for it.
All right, then we'll put a motion. All those who support the remit, please say aye, raise your hand. To the contrary, carried. Thanks. Number 3. There's perhaps a question mark around this one. Given that where the legislation's at and what's happened in the last week or so, is this remit still relevant, or has it sort of missed the, or has legislation basically surpassed that? Councillor Hadfield?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I believe it has. I mean, the legislation's passed in the House. It's clear that it's clear to me that local government New Zealand shouldn't actually pursue this matter. But if they did wish to pursue a topic, my view would be, and it's been my view all along, is that actually the approach should be that all wards should be subject to a referendum. And that's actually been the point that I've made all along, because quite frankly, to have politicians indulge in constitutional matters, which the formation and the manner within which elections are conducted is entirely, in my view, a constitutional matter, and politicians have actually no right nor no place to be involved in any decisions around this. So I find...
I don't think that's what we're discussing right at the moment, Councillor Hadfield. I think we're discussing whether we want to...
Well, I'm just, with all due respect, Mr. Chair, I'm actually just putting my case as to why I don't support this.
Yeah, my question wasn't about whether we support it or not. It was whether we should just abstain because it's no longer relevant because of the legislation has already passed.
Well,
so before we get into whether we support the remit or not, is my question to you is there any point? Because we could have a debate for hours and hours, I'm sure. But is there any point in having it, given that the legislation has already kind of surpassed where this remit was put forward a long time before the legislation? Councillor Short.
Well, excuse, may I have the right to reply?
You may.
I'm assuming that, like in any situation where a remit is proffered, that anybody has the right to move an amendment to a remit or a motion.
Yep.
And the point that I've been trying to get to is that my view is if we were going to do anything, either it is surpassed, but consideration to actually a motion that suggests that all wards should be subject to referendum would actually be a topic worthy of discussion. And that's, with all due respect, that's all I was getting to. But if colleagues believe that that's a waste of time, I'm happy with that. But under the normal agenda or the normal process of actually running remits or notices of motion, that an amendment can always be tabled from the floor. So that was just my point. If that's not something that finds support from colleagues, I concur with you, Mr. Chair, is that actually becomes irrelevant and we just cannot.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
Thank you. This one may well get withdrawn. I don't know whether anyone has checked with LGNZ that since what's happened this week, whether that is likely or not. If it's not withdrawn and it sits there, I would prefer that we had a position rather than abstained.
Okay. Councillor Quarry.
Perhaps guided by the decisions that we made on the 16th of May.
Yes, when I first read this, I was quite happy with the idea that all wards be treated the same and that all wards should be subject to a referendum. Therefore, I would support the amendment stating that if we're going to have wards, that's fine, and all of them should be open to a referendum from the voters. So I'd vote for an amendment. If it's not withdrawn, then we vote for an amendment to include all wards.
Councillor Blakemore.
Thank you. I'm kind of wondering to Ash's point about new information and things that might come up during the discussion on this remit at LGNZ. And, you know, I've seen one of these. I haven't seen enough to know what kind of amendments may come through, what kind of discussion might be had. But I agree with Councillor Short around our collective position. I think it's always been LGNZ's position on this that, much like what Councillor Hadfield has raised, that it should be all wards subject to a referendum, not just one. So I think perhaps if we, as a position for Mayor Helen and yourself and whoever's down there to kind of have in the back of their mind for whatever the remit may end up being, I would support that position, that if anything, all wards are subject to a referendum.
So am I taking it that you are proposing that Manawatu District Council proposes an amendment, or are you saying if somebody else does, we should support it?
Well, I don't know enough about the process in terms of understanding what might happen in that discussion. So Palmerston North City Council, for example, as the proposes, may realise that the wording of this is no longer relevant given legislative changes. So may change it themselves. I suspect Mayor Helen's going to have to think on the fly a wee bit in terms of what comes up. But I think our collective position or our very different positions actually on this is well known by Mayor Helen, by everyone who's there. So I think she's got enough information to almost know how to vote depending on how the remit comes out. Councillor Bell's obviously got something to add, which may change my current position, which I can come back to your question.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
I think it's just important to give context to this remit a bit further because it's written that it's proposed by Palmerston North because they tabled it. This remit couldn't be tabled by Te Pai Tawhiti because the Māori wards are spread across different councils. So I can't speak on behalf of PNC, but what I can speak of is that they were supportive of whatever stance Te Pai Tawhiti had and continue to have. We are open to that amendment.
Initially, the first remit that we wrote, because I'm one of the co-authors along with officers of Horowhenua and PNC, that was actually our stance, was that all wards go through a referendum. On the day that PNC landed this, we shifted because the vote within Te Pai Tawhiti thought we should have our language stronger, and that was before it went to Zone 3. So if our council's position is that we request from PNC and Te Pai Tawhiti to make an amendment where it's not about the provision of removing the referendum for the Māori ward, but for us to align with National Council and LGNZ that all wards go through a referendum. Te Pai Tawhiti are happy with that. We are satisfied with that.
Okay, just in terms of clarification, so I'm hearing all wards should be subject to referendum. What about the alternative of no wards be subject to referendum? Because I would have thought that those who opposed the Murray wards being subject to referendum would prefer that no wards be subject to a referendum.
Mr. Chair, that's a very dangerous situation, because that's saying that the voting public doesn't have a say. And that is saying that our electoral system is decided by those people that sit around a table. Now, that happens in Russia. It should not happen here. The people are the final choice, and they should have a choice of which system they want to enact and belong to. Now, to say that none of them have a chance to have a vote is very, very dangerous ground.
Okay, so is it the wish of the meeting that of those two options that I've outlined, it should be all wards should be subject to a referendum? That's what I'm hearing, I think?
Yep.
Councillor Short.
I'm prepared to take the opposing view. All wards should be subject to a representation review, but not a referendum, is my stance.
Okay.
Perhaps before the meeting, Mayor Helen can have a further conversation with Mayor Grant and get a little bit more background information. We've still got another opportunity to discuss this particular one, I think, before it's end August, the LGNZ conference, isn't it?
Yep. We have another meeting on the 15th before then.
My fear is that if all wards have a referendum, does that mean people on the general electoral roll get a say on the Māori ward and on the Māori representation, and those on the Māori roll also get a view on those on the general roll? Because the whole point of Māori wards was to give the minority a voice at the decision-making table. And if you put it to a referendum, it's pretty clear which way it would go, and then we've lost that huge advantage that we've accepted recently. Because to me, there's no policy proof that Māori wards and constituencies have not been beneficial.
Councillor Hadfield.
I'll go back to my original point, Mr. Chair, that my strong belief is that the manner in which people are elected is a constitutional issue, and it is a constitutional issue that requires input from the voting populace. A representation review, as we know, and our council experienced recently in its last representation review, and setting the number of sitting councillors in the wards, doesn't necessarily mean that the community's wishes are actually followed, because again, a representation review leaves the final decision in the hand of politicians. Now, I find that totally unacceptable, and it's actually untenable. And given that our council's actually suffered at the hands of the Local Government Commission and a clear view of not listening to the voting public, we can't go down that pathway. So I don't believe that a representation review actually offers the protection to the average voter and citizen that is actually required. in an open democracy. So I'm fully supportive of the notion that actually that we as a council could proffer an amendment to that motion that actually just says that all wards should be subject to referendum. And that's actually putting the decision in the hands of the public where it rightfully belongs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just before I move on, there's just 2 points there. So you're suggesting, Councillor Hadfield, that MDC should proffer the amendment. Someone else may beat us to it, in which case we'd just support it. But rather than nothing happen, we should at least proffer the amendment, in your view.
Absolutely, Mr.
Right.
Chair.
And just a slight bit of pushback on the where we got to the Local Government Commission. I don't believe it's fair to say that the council ignored the wishes of the voting public. I think there are only 20-something submissions, let's face it. But I think that the Local Government Commission decided that there wasn't a good enough reason for council to change its mind, which is slightly different to not listening to the thousands of people who, I think, were 21. Councillor Belsky.
I'm not prepared to debate that one, Mr. Chair, for the sake of brevity.
Okay, Councillor Belsky.
I think I've got the picture of discussion with my ears, but I know you've just said that basically we're sidetracking a little bit, but the representation review was done on the rural wards, and there was basically we only have 1 from the north and 3 from the south, or 4 from the south, because of the statistics of the census. And that altered everything for our rural wards. And I fought against it, and I thought, how on earth is we going to get anyone from the north, let alone 1? How can we get 2 or 3? But I was proven wrong, because Heather G. Taylor got in, and against all odds that I would have expected. So I was actually against all wards, and let the people vote it, not the powers at Parliament. But so I would support what Councillor Hadfield saying and Councillor Quarry saying. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
I think we're going down the wrong path here. I don't think there's any opportunity to propose an amendment. You've got to remember that 64 other councils considering yes or no on this one too, and I think we're just looking at a yes or no debate. If we put up an amendment, then every other council doesn't have the opportunity to consider that, and it'll fail. So, in my opinion, waste of time. I think we should be considering a yes or no to this, whether we support it or we don't. Yeah, that's where I'm coming from. But I would make the point that when it comes to boundaries and electoral boundaries, we don't have any opportunity to force a referendum on which electorate we live in for, or where the electorate boundaries are for the National Parliament elections. We don't have any input into the district council boundaries as to which district council we live in, or where those boundaries go. I don't think it should be any different for our wards within our district council. So I don't support any referendum on having to be forced. It should be our decision, full stop. We make the decision where those boundaries are. If the electors don't like that, they've got the opportunity to vote us out. That's the final say. It's just a nonsense to have extra referendums all the time. It costs a lot of money and achieve, in my opinion, very little. So I would support the motion as it is.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that the amendment go through. That the motion is amended to include all wards.
Okay, so at the moment we have a a remit that says that Maori Ward should not be subject to a referendum. And so you're proposing, councillor Quarry, that we change that basically all wards should be subject to a referendum, which is a
The
huge.
motion, yes, Mr. Chairman, the motion said to ensure that merit and constituencies are treated the same as all other wards. So I fully support that they are treated the same as all other wards.
Yep.
We oppose the idea that Maori wards should be singled out and forced to suffer a public referendum. So I'm saying that all wards, the amendment be written into it to include a referendum for all wards. Now that is the amendment. So I've moved that. I'm wondering if there's a seconder.
Is there a seconder? Are you seconding, councillor Hadfield? That's all we're asking at the moment. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it to get discussion.
Thank you. Right. Open for discussion. Councillor Hadfield and councillor Short.
So really, when we look at the motion as it's written from Palmerston North, is that all we need to actually change is that Maori wards and constituencies are treated the same as all other wards, in that they should all be subject to a referendum. That's really simply the wording that's required to be changed. Just as a
Yes, it is. In terms of wording, it's simple, but in terms of meaning, I think it's very different.
So and also in saying that, you know, what we're doing here is actually deciding what we think council's best approach is for Mayor Helen to act on behalf of the council. But also we have to give Mayor Helen the leeway to actually, you know, run with events on the day, because as has already been indicated, this may well be withdrawn.
That's right. I mean, this is the most contentious one, presumably, and so, and particularly given that Mayor Helen's not here, I am here. I will be there. So it is important that we clear where we get to. So I think we'll go councillor Short and then councillor McFadyen.
Mine's just a procedural question. Do we know the terms of reference for the LGNZ AGM, what the process is for amendments? Are they allowed from the floor? Do they have to come get the approval of the movers and seconders? Do we know? I mean, we might just be agreeing to do something that we can't do anyway.
Exactly.
My point. I'm afraid I don't know. Sorry, we'd have to look into.
So I almost think we need to leave this one sitting on the table. We don't know enough.
Okay, my memory is that there have been amendments from the floor, but I'm not going to die in a ditch and say that that's 100% accurate. Councillor McFadyen.
Excuse me. Isn't this really about the fact that dealing with this amendment? So we either say yes or no to the amendment, and then say, should the opportunity arise that we wish to introduce an amendment, or if there is an amendment, that we empower Mayor Helen to actually put forward our thoughts as we've discussed. Isn't actually what we're trying to get to? Because the way that this is written is we either approve it or we don't approve it. It's not written that we're going to amend it. So we need to.
But councillor Quarry has proposed an amendment, which has been seconded, and we're discussing it. Councillor Bell.
I wonder if if we were able to take a pause on this remit in particular. I have 5 LGN staff on my phone. We could call them and ask them, and so we know now whether amendments are part of the process, and then we'll know clearer.
Everyone comfortable with that? Seems like a
okay?
sensible
We
move.
take a
Thank you.
break?
Thank you, councillor Bell.
Can I just quickly, remit 4 is possibly related to that, if you want.
Yeah, but
so
for the process of this, we need to say yes, no, but amend it to.
Yeah. So we can, can't we? Yeah. So I think we've already established that amendments can be taken from the floor, and so that is possible. So are we happy to continue on? So we've had a mover and a seconder for an amendment, and we're at discussion. Is there any further discussion, councillor Bell?
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Grace has just texted and said you can. The thing I want to be really clear about, and it's obvious, but I just want to state it publicly, that I don't support the referendum for Māori wards, obviously, but I am satisfied and comfortable that our council is shifting, that there's an amendment to this remit. But I do agree, and I align completely with Councillor Campbell, that I don't believe the Māori ward or anyone outside should put legislation in that impacts sort of how we get to this table. So if I'm quite conflicted in where I'm going to vote. I want to vote for the amendment, but the messaging in that vote is that I still feel the Māori wards shouldn't have to go through a referendum. So I'm a bit of I'm both today. And I'm thinking with my heart and strategy at the same time.
Which is partly why I was trying to clarify, there are two ways to go. In terms of treating all wards the same, they can all be subject to a referendum, or none of them can be subject to a referendum. And that's what I was wanting to get clarification on. At the moment, we've got a motion for an amendment to have all wards subject to a referendum. So, Councillor Short.
I'll just say my main point again. If all wards are subject to a referendum, we will still lose Māori wards and constituencies because the minority is going to be outweighed by the majority, and that's why I do not support any referenda of any wards.
I agree.
Right. So we'll put the amendment. We clear on the wording. Ash, have you got something there?
Yeah, can I
You'd
just
like to
check
read it back
that
to us?
Councillor Corey and Hadfield are happy with that wording? Oh,
Can't
Timon,
read
sorry.
it out to 'em.
Sorry. That all local government constituencies and wards should be subject to referendum.
So Councillor Corrie is comfortable with that. Councillor Hadfield, are you happy with that wording? All right, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The amendment vote is carried.
So that was 6-4, 4 against, and Councillor Bell didn't vote. Sure.
Yep. Right, Ash. So that is that instructing Manawatu District Council to put up an amendment from the floor at the AGM. That's everyone's understanding? Yep, okay. That's Councillor Bell?
No, actually, that's fine.
Councillor Blackmore?
My question is, do we now need to vote in case the amendment doesn't pass, and as it stands is what goes through LGNZ?
Yep, so shall we have a vote on the remit as it is written on the basis that the amendment fails? Okay. Right, all those in favour of the remit as it was originally put forward, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Right, the motion is lost. So we are not supporting the remit. 6-5, that's what you got? Yep. Okay.
Just to clarify the procedure, sorry, that one forms part of the second block, which will all pass at the end. Because the remits 1 and 2, we haven't been moving and seconding, we've just been doing a roundtable vote on them. Just to clarify the process, sorry, in case you're confused looking at it on the screen. If you want this to be a standalone one, we can. It just need to be moved and seconded.
I'm not quite sure what your question, I don't understand your question, sorry.
I'm just pointing out that the specific vote for that isn't going to be recorded. That's just a roundtable gesture, and then these 8 remits will all be voted on at the end. And that's what's recorded in the minutes. If it's of significant gravitas that you want to vote on it separately, then we have to do that separately.
I'm still at a loss. I have no idea what you're saying. Because surely this is the most important one that everyone has a view on, and we've had a lot of discussion. And you're saying we're not going to record it. Why would that be?
You have to move and second it if you're doing a formal vote on it. If you're just doing a roundtable, and that's not a motion, that's just part of this motion, which we'll vote on at the end.
So in just following our standing orders, for each recommendation to become a decision of council, it needs a mover and a seconder, and then a vote. So for the first two, this was what Ash tried to explain at the beginning, was it's fine if we just do a round table and then we get to our full list of support, does not support, and then we take that as a block and somebody moves and seconds that, right? But for the specific one, if you just scroll up a bit, Ash, we had a mover and a seconder for remit 3. So that one we have treated differently than we treated the first 2 remits. So just procedure wise.
Right, let's go back to 1 and 2 and move and second, and I think that'll be probably the simplest way so that they're all dealt the same.
Sure.
Is that okay? Does anyone have a problem with that? So go back to, and I apologise if I didn't pick up on the point that Ash was making earlier, sorry. So going back to the representation review and the timely and accurate regional, sub-regional population data to council for use in council representation views, do we have a mover to support that? Councillor Hadfield, seconder, Councillor McFadyen. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, carried. And number 2 is the community services card 1. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Short, is there a seconder? Councillor Blackmore, any discussion? All those in favour of that remit, please say aye. To the contrary, carried. Okay. And then we have, so with 3, Mayor Helen is instructed to put up an amendment if no one else does. And if that is lost and we go back to the remit 3 from Palmerston North, then we vote against that. That's clear on that or not?
And we need a mover and a seconder for that.
Okay. I'll ask for a mover. Councillor Hadfield. Councillor Quarry is the seconder. Any? Yeah, but apparently I didn't do the procedure properly, so. Yep. So those in favour of, so we're now just to be clear, we're voting on the original remit, not the amendment. Original remit. Those in favour, please raise your hand. This is number 3.
I've included the words if the amendment does not pass, so this is only relevant if the amendment.
It's only relevant if the amendment fails.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're putting forward an amendment, but if that fails and we end up having to vote on the original remit, we're just covering that procedurally now. So we've now got a mover, Councillor Hadfield, a seconder, Councillor Quarry, and
I can't imagine they would move
No,
that.
that's incorrect, Ash. It was do not support, which is what we just voted on before.
We've got a double negative.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, which is confusing.
Okay.
Oh.
So how's that for wording?
Mine's another procedural question.
Oh, yeah, you would vote that one, yep.
so wouldn't the wording just be exactly what is in here?
We could, I've just added that first clause so that it makes it clear that this is only relevant if the first one fails. Otherwise, you might pass the amendment and then also vote on this one separately. I'm happy to reword it if you think it's not clear.
Well, if so we're clear on the amendment, what we want, but if that fails, then my thinking is that we'll only be voting on the Palmerston North remit. And we're just doing that again because for procedurally, but Councillor Short, then Councillor Blackmore.
Yeah, mine's a procedural question. This one, if it is still on the table on the day, could quite likely receive another amendment in a different wording.
Yes.
If we commit ourselves to the amendment that you're putting forward here, are we going to give Mayor Helen the discretion on the day to listen to any other proposals that might come that are different to the proposal that we put forward?
I think that is always the case. But what we're doing here today is providing guidance from council as to how we would like Mayor Helen to vote, the vibe, if you like. So there may well be a different amendment that we end up having to consider, but this process is at least useful in finding the direction that we're wanting council to go. Was it Councillor Blackmore, I think?
Yeah, I just wonder for our process here and to keep things simpler, everyone does support, and if it doesn't, if it's lost, then we know it's not, because we've got a double negative and it's a bit confusing. And so those people who support the remit would move in second and then see what happens, rather than people who don't support the remit move in second. And I think the double negative is quite unhelpful.
Well, aren't we wanting to just use the wording that is written here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
So that when in a few weeks' time, when we've all forgotten this discussion, we pick up the wording and it's here.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I'm not
Right.
changing the wording. I'm saying whether we use support or does not support as the motion. And in this case, we know the motion will be lost because it won't get the support. Therefore, the default becomes we don't support it.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Councillor Hadfield.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to withdraw my support, or I was to withdraw moving that motion as it's currently worded, and I'm comfortable that your suggestion is that the wording that's in the actual local government document is used, but clearly I won't be moving that, and I suspect my colleague won't be seconding it. So I think if we can go back to the drawing board on that,
I think it would be simpler.
Yep, quite happy with that.
Yep. So we've got the amendment, and then otherwise we're back to the actual wording that LGNZ lobbies central government to ensure that Maori wards and constituencies are treated the same as all other wards, and that they should not be subject to a referendum. We oppose the idea that Maori wards should be singled out and forced to suffer a public referendum. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Short, seconded Councillor Bell. Is there any further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the motion is lost. 5, 6, 5, or 5, 6. Yep. Which is consistent with what we did a few minutes ago. Yep. Yeah. Right. Right. Well, I just worried we were going to finish the meeting too early. That was all. Right, we move to remit 4, entrenchment of Maori ward seats for local government. That Local Government New Zealand proactively promote and lobby to entrench the Maori wards and constituencies for the 64 councils which currently have these, to require the support of a supermajority of Parliament should either Parliament or council seek their removal. Open that for discussion. Councillor Corey.
I'd just like to point out the introduction was not by a super majority. Therefore, its removal should not be by a super majority. And obviously, I'd be voting against this.
You, anyone else? All right, someone like to move that we support this motion? Councillor Blackmore?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Bell? Any further discussion? Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, but about a position clear on this one. While I support our current Murray Ward, I wouldn't support entrenchment. I think, I wouldn't want to see it locked in forever and never have the ability to, change anything. So I'd like to see a bit of flexibility retained. And the ability for the government to, change it if so desire. So yeah, I'll vote against this one.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Anyone else? Right, we'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Motion's lost.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify? That was but for Councillor Shaw.
I understand.
Right. 5 is graduated driver licensing system. Councillor Underwood.
An interesting coincidence was I saw a name Rationale New Zealand in one of our other documents, and I went to the website to have a look at who they are. And on their website, it says that one of their current projects, they work with local government, and one of their current projects with the client being NZTA is New Zealand Driver Licensing Improvement Program. And it mentioned that they are doing work in the Gisborne district and the far north. So I'm wondering whether the proposer of this remit actually knows that and that work is going on. It wasn't mentioned in the minister's letter. But obviously they either are still working on it and haven't managed to fix it yet, but they give a report here about what they're doing to deal with this. So I think it's already being done.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Thanks. I know that the issue that is outlined here is an issue in our district. The delays to the licensing, and if we took a broader view, that then has implications for, in particular, young people being able to get jobs because they need licenses, and then we might think about the economic impact of that. What I worry a little bit about is, if you take all of these remits together, plus last year's, plus the years before, like where does the workload start and finish for the limited resource of LGNZ to advocate or lobby on our behalf? So I feel perhaps like this is stepping outside of what we would make priority.
After we've finished voting on these remits, we will prioritise them because we will be asked to prioritise them as at the AGM.
Okay,
So
so kind of
of-
conceptually, I support this.
Okay, so what I could be hearing is that you would probably support it, but as a lower priority.
Yeah.
Right, Councillor Short.
Thank you. I think looking at the proposers and the supporters, this has come from quite rural, more rural even than us possibly, councils who are very involved in the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs program. And, around here we've got particularly, Central Hawke's Bay, places like that, where it really is quite a serious issue for young people to get their licenses. And that's why I feel it actually sits better in the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs national portfolio. I know that gets quite significant. Does it get $10 million MSD funding or something? I can't, well, it might not be MSD, but youth development probably. I'll support it, but it's not, of all the remits that we've got, it's not top of my list at all.
Great. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I agree with Councillor Blackmore. This actually, in my view, is not actually an issue for local government New Zealand. Clearly, some councils have got some issues with the capability of NZTA to provide either sufficient number of agents or resource it sufficiently. But my view is this is actually something for individual councils to advocate on behalf of their community. And I just don't see it as a priority for local government New Zealand. In fact, I think it falls outside the scope of their remit, to be honest. So, I mean, I actually don't support this.
Thank you, Councillor McFadyen.
Thank you. I don't support it. I'm also concerned about the resources of LGNZ and also the impact recently of losing that financial input from Christchurch City Council and other councils. And I think it's in our interests to actually try and make sure that the remits that we try to get put forward are going to be able to be actually actioned on properly, not just burden it down with a whole lot of remits.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a mover for supporting the remit? In that case, I guess our position is that we are opposed.
In that case, can we please, if you want your worship to express view, can we please vote that regionals?
Right. So do we have a mover for someone that we don't support it? Councillor Hadfield. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Underwood. Any discussion? All those supporting that we don't support the remit? Sorry about the wording. Yep. Please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, carried. So we don't support the remit. Right, I'm going to say that we're going to have a morning tea break. And if we can be back at, say, 1/4 hour, 10 past. Remit number 6, proactive lever to mitigate the deterioration of unoccupied buildings. This has come from Gisborne, that Local Government New Zealand advocate to government for legislative change enabling local authorities to compel building owners to remediate unoccupied derelict buildings and sites that have deteriorated to a state where they negatively impact the amenity of the surrounding area, and to incentivise repurposing vacant buildings to meet region-specific needs, for example, accommodation conversion. Quite a lengthy remit and supporting documents, and interesting sort of case study there of the drug dealing absentee landlord from Singapore and some of the issues there. And I think the same family own 9 buildings in Whanganui. So, right, we'll open that discussion. Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, thank you. I support this, but I find it very hard to implement. I think it'd be a great thing, you know, to try and make it actually work and be effective, I think would be nigh impossible.
They were my initial thoughts too. So yes, Councillor, is it Underwood or Hadfield? One of you had your hand up. Underwood.
I wouldn't support it. Just, I don't think that people should be able to be forced to do anything with their private property. And these buildings, a lot of them get into the state because they've got heritage status, and it becomes very expensive for people to maintain them, and they're really limited in what they can do. And this case here, as you've mentioned, is very unique in that we've got the owner of quite a few of these buildings being living overseas and under prosecution from the police, and it's not something that you would probably find as a common thing throughout New Zealand.
Councillor Campbell.
Wasn't that long ago we had this issue exactly in Fielding, right in Manchester Square, some years back now. But you know, we had a derelict Cornish's building, wasn't it, or Cobb building that sat there for quite a long time, looking pretty ugly. And it'd be very good to have a few extra teeth to be able to deal with those things. We didn't at the time. So yeah, I think I'd support this. I mean, this is talking about legislative change. I mean, that takes a process to work through to get it right. But yeah.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I think there's an interesting point here around amenity. So what stood out for me is if you're building something new and to get consent, you know, you've got to consider the amenity and work with that in order to have that approved. And yet this doesn't feel very equitable in terms of ownership of something already built, that you should be allowed to let it deteriorate to a point where it no longer meets those principles. So overall, I'm supportive.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden.
Thank you. My concern is the fact that I understand the principle of it, but then there's the issue around how do you actually deal with it? And, you know, I take the point about being a derelict building. How do you actually deal with it? You're going to force somebody to do something that could be brought about by a legislative change, that you've gone in there with the best of intent, and now you just haven't got basically have got a way to get yourself out. All right, so I'm against it. The principle I support, but I think that the devil would be in the detail.
Councillor Quigley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't support it. I don't think it's going to work. And the funny thing is, if you look over the page, all those buildings there they've got photographs of, they're fine. Nothing wrong with them. They're not derelict. They're just vacant. And how we make it work, I wouldn't know.
Councillor Short.
Yes, I actually have heard the Mayor of Gisborne speaking on this on something on TV, I think. The problem that they've faced, we're very lucky here in Fielding that at the moment we don't have this issue, but as Councillor Campbell said, we did at one stage, and who knows, we could in the future as well. I guess the thing for me is if you own a property you're responsible to keeping it to a certain level of maintenance, and certainly that amenity value, as Councillor Blackmore has commented, if you were building a new building, you have to meet a whole lot of terms and conditions to meet the district plan, whatever, but with an older building, not so much. But I'm also worried about the fact it's the social issues that come with these vacant buildings, and that's what concerns me, you know, squatting and drugs and all those sorts of things. Obviously, if a property's very derelict, it'll only be worth land value anyway. And I guess the only tool could be to, if a landlord refuses to do anything, is force them to sell it and put a caveat over the title. I don't know. There's something we can do now under the, what are the unsanitary and dangerous buildings?
Yeah, but that's a very high threshold. So it's got to be almost bricks falling off and hitting people on the head before you can make it. That's a safety thing. So there seems to be a colossal gap between the requirements, as you've pointed out, for new buildings, or even people who are getting a consent to do work on their buildings. There's rules around that, and then nothing until it's actually hurting people, you know, risking life and limb. So I agree with Councillor Quarry that I think it'll be difficult to in practice, but I support it in terms of at least there's an attempt to try and do something about it. We've got a situation here. It's not quite this situation, but the old new world. Some of what's going on in there at the moment. There's obviously the tagging of the buildings, but there's actually there's violence. There's people being attacked. There's knives. There's other weapons. There's drug use. There's people sleeping rough. Now, we know that there's plans for that site. It's just taking time. But in the meantime, you know, should it be fenced off so that people can't get in there, or so there are certainly some problems, even in Fielding. You can certainly see Gisborne, they're really suffering. So the remit itself is looking for change. It's not spelling out what the change should be. So I guess we're probably, if those of us who are wanting to support it would say, well, let the experts have a look at what the levers might be. Hopefully they'll be successful. But perhaps some of us are a bit cynical about the difficulty. So any other discussion, Councillor Bielski?
Just agree with you, Councillor Ford. You know, the trouble that we have with the Civic Centre of changing anything is a big hurdle, and there definitely needs to be a change in this, and I support the policy.
Okay.
Or the remit.
Someone like to move that we support that remit? Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Short seconded. Any further discussion? We'll put the motion. All those who are in favour of supporting the remit, please say aye, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion's passed. We are supporting the remit. And number 7, appropriate funding models for central government initiatives. So we've got number 8 as well, which is about sharing GST. So similar theme, but they are quite different. So this one, that Local Government New Zealand proactively promote and lobby for the development of a more equitable and appropriate funding model for central government initiatives. So I think they're largely talking about all the mandates that are coming from central government that radio local government, you do this, and by the way, there's no money. That's how I read it, but open that for discussion. Councillor Bielski.
Yeah, this one makes sense. The GST is a tax on a tax, and it's coming out of our district into the. I'm on 7, is it?
We're on 7, which is not the
Oh,
GST
sorry.
one.
I
This is
flipped
more
over
for
too far.
central government mandates to local government and inappropriate or not enough funding.
Okay, I'll just do that.
Councillor Hadfield?
Happy to move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor McFadyen. Open it for discussion again. Councillor McFadyen.
I think this is actually what LG&Z should really be doing, so I definitely support it.
Cool. Right. Anyone else? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand. Those against? Motion is carried. We are supporting Remit 7. Move to Remit 8, which is the goods and services tax revenue sharing with local government. That local government New Zealand be proactive in lobbying central government on sharing GST revenue with local government derived from local government rates and service fees related to flood protection, mitigation, roading and Three Waters for investment in these areas. Councillor Quarry, wishing to move? Is there a seconder? Councillor Belsky, open it for discussion. Councillor Short.
I will support it, but personally, I think there should be no goods and services tax on rates because it, as we all know, tax on a tax, and it's really just shuffling the deck chairs on the boat, really, because are you paying as a taxpayer or a ratepayer? But I will support it.
Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think at the end of the day, we could debate the tax on a tax issue until we're, dead in the water, to be honest. But look, at the end of the day, I actually don't think this goes far enough. And actually, my view is that GST on rates should be returned, period, rather than just specifically these areas. But I mean, obviously, I'll support it. But I just personally think it doesn't go far enough.
Good. Councillor McFadyen.
Just a point of order, actually, GST is returned on rates if you're a commercial business. If you're GST registered, you do get it back. It's only the people that are not GST registered that are impacted by it.
So just one of the articles that's been floating around, typical couple own a modest property, $3,000 or $4,000 a year they pay in rates, and forgotten the figure, but it was $30-something thousand a year in tax. Just a reminder, and they probably whinge more about the rates than they do about the tax because we send them an invoice every three or four times a year, whereas the tax just sort of generally comes out without them even noticing. So it is I think that's relevant to this. Councillor Campbell.
Valid point about who can claim the GST or not, and it might be a consideration for the next time council debates our differentials, and it's largely why we have differentials. And the fact is that to make them even, the CBD and commercial areas should really have a 15% differential, and that evens it up. So yeah, just something to think about next. Talk about differentials.
So you don't think that 275% is high enough?
Just a point of order. Not everybody's GST registered, even if they own a commercial building.
No. Well, that's their problem.
Right. Just forgotten. Did we had a mover for this one? I think we have, haven't we? And seconded. Right. We've had discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour of supporting the remit, please say aye. Raise your hand. Opposed? Passed. Thank you. Oh, that's pretty useful. Thank you, everybody. Now we'll
just got one more. Sorry, Deputy Mayor. Just up on the screen there, I've just slightly amended the wording just to reflect that we did them individually.
Very good. Do we have a mover? Councillor McFadyen, seconded. Councillor Hadfield. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. To contrary, carried. Thank Thank you. Now, Francis and Ash, you can stay right where you are. And we have the adoption of the remuneration and reimbursement for external committee members policy. So over to you.
Perfect, thank you. This one's quite a bit more straightforward. Essentially what this amendment is doing is extending our remuneration for DLC members to cover their training. So that was a gap that was identified recently. A couple of the members went off to some training. There was some confusion around whether they were eligible to claim an allowance for that, which highlighted the confusion within the policy. So we're just amending that. And then this policy will come back to you next year, April, May. Again, it will come back to you every year, probably the next few years, but this is just a slight amendment.
Right, open that for discussion. Councillor McFadden.
I'd actually like to propose that we accept this recommendation.
So we'll take it, Councillor, you'll move that we run with
the recommendation yes.
1. Yeah.
Okay.
So as written here in the attachment without amendment. Yep. Do I have a seconder? Okay. 65, sorry. Councillor Underwood.
So the training is required because of updates to legislation. Is that the reason why, or this particular committee undergoes training?
It was optional. I mean, it's encouraged, right? We this particular training we did with Live-In, this was the recent training. It was because of updates to legislation, particularly around hearings. But I think Councillor Short's got some comments as well.
Now that I've caught up to where we are, sorry for not being on the same page at the beginning.
That's right. You finished your shopping?
I wasn't sure. What was highlighted for the training that we had, and the training was around holding district licensing hearings, which most of us haven't had a lot of experience in. There was probably on the day 10 or 15 people from a number of councils in the area. And what became apparent is, as elected members, I was able to, do the usual claims. But the Clive, one of our hearing members, actually, according to our documentation, wasn't entitled to anything, and he gave the whole day.
Yeah, this is around the meeting figure specifically. So you could claim for mileage, and of course, just to clarify, Councillor Short isn't counted as an elected member in terms of DLC.
Well, yes,
it's separate. But yeah.
Right.
So really, I've got a conflict on it, haven't I?
Councillor Underwood.
So in the schedule, under the hourly rates, the chair gets a higher hourly rate. Under training, would that still apply, that the chair would get a higher hourly rate when there's no extra responsibility?
There's extra responsibility.
Oh, that's so quite well. Yeah. The rate is the same. Yeah, it's just that meeting allowance. So that's the same figure we would use for training.
Councillor Quigley.
Thank you. This has been moved, I believe. Has it been seconded? Just trying to move it on.
You're seconding it. That's fine.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Quigley. Right. Any further discussion?
What's the motion?
So the motion is that the council, 1, adopts the updated remuneration and reimbursement for external committee members policy attachment 1 without amendment. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. So got your vote recorded? Okay. Thank you. Moving through to page 75. Delegations manual. Over to you again, Ash.
So this is another one of those little technical ones we have to bring to you because it's the RMA. This one specifically is just adding armour guard contractors to our 2 provisions around noise control. You'll see in the body of the report that we have another contractor listed there, but Armaguard is missing. So it's just making sure we get this covered off so that they have all of the legal basis they need to be carrying those warrants.
Very good. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Short. We'd love to hear you read it out. Thanks.
Council adds. Sorry, that the council adds contract Armaguard to subsections 327, issue excessive noise direction, and 328, compliance with excessive noise direction of section 8.2 of the Resource Management Act 1991 of the Delegations Manual.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Quigley, any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you. There's no late items, so we'll move to public excluded. I'll move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely 1, confirmation of minutes, 4th of July 2024. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Hadfield. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary? Carried. Thank you.